first obstacle to success is failure, and the second is success. Success makes people feel as though the effort to change one's circumstances isn't necessary. Furthermore, true mastery is built on attempts, failures, and lessons learned. Every step, whether it's a success or setback, brings you closer to growth. During the goal-setting stage, consider starting with what you want in the end before working backward to figure out what you should start doing now. Thinking backwards, also known as retrograde reasoning, can improve our ability to make decisions, recall memories, and solve problems according to cognitive science research. This decision-making framework is made easier through journaling, although there are other frameworks. Depending on your task, it may also help to look into strategies surrounding task prioritization, brainstorming, creativity, organization, and feedback. When it comes to brainstorming, second-order thinking is a basic technique that can be summarized as asking yourself, and then what? First-order thinking causes us to just focus on solving the immediate problem, but repeatedly asking yourself, and then what? Forces you to think about other noteworthy factors. You can also use a journal for scenario planning, in which you speculate on the actions you take in unlikely and possible outcomes. Alternatively, or additionally, you can reflect on what happened earlier that day. This practice often takes the form of a focus log, in which you figure out if you did more of what you'd prefer to do, or more of what you'd prefer not to do. I'm phrasing it like that since it's less judgmental than saying good or bad, we're all human. You can attribute points to the actions and later add them up to assess your progress throughout days, weeks, and months. If you use focus logs as scorecards, consider using a spreadsheet to automate the calculations. Also remember that you can have focus logs for categories of tasks, such as study schedules for academics. Consider using color coding to showcase and compare your progress in given areas. Similarly, you can use colored pens and highlighters to mark up your journaling. Seriously consider using implementation intentions. Journaling is one way to make use of them, especially since journaling can also be used to tweak your habits to ensure you keep getting an adequate and thus fulfilling challenge. This practice is known as a habit review. Clarify your strategies so that you know exactly how to tackle things and reward your input instead of your output. Goals work to improve performance. Harder goals work better than easier goals, but only if the goal is accepted. Goals work even better for simpler tasks. Complicated tasks also benefit, but the pressure of a goal can sometimes lead to poorer strategies. Specific standards do better than doing your best. Goals can be made even more effective through implementation intentions, where you plan specifically how you'll enact your goal. This is thought to cue attentional processes that help you recognize opportunities to act. Give yourself a few challenging goals so that you can really brainstorm how you'd go about achieving them. To figure out what'll give you lasting joy, think about what makes you passionate, what you have the power to do well, and what problem in the world or in a certain community you'd like to counteract. Also bear in mind the difference between happiness that quickly goes away and lasting satisfaction. You should do research to figure out which category your goal falls under. Your motivation shouldn't be too reliant on how you think others will feel, or on things that you haven't experienced before. Gratitude is important, since even if the grass is greener on the other side, it's definitely greener where you water it. Besides this, consider the importance of a good challenge in keeping yourself engaged. The Pygmalion effect describes situations where someone's high expectations improves our behavior and therefore our performance in a given area. It suggests that we do better when more is expected of us. Although the Pygmalion effect is subconscious, it demonstrates that others' expectations can greatly influence our performance. However, it's important to work on strengthening your self-worth, part of which means clarifying how you define yourself. If someone expects us to perform poorly based on our identity, we may actually exhibit worse performance. This is rooted in the stereotype threat, or the fear of confirming a negative stereotype about one's social group. In one study, female Asian Americans who were asked to report their gender before completing a math test received worse scores than women who were not. This is because they were forced to confront the expectation that women are worse at math, impairing their performance. On the other hand, priming the women's racial identity rather than their gender improved their math performance, as Asians are stereotyped as possessing superior math skills. Another way to improve goal setting is to envision the process of achieving it through visualization. Mental contrasting combines positive visualization of goals with realistic evaluation of obstacles, improving motivation and goal attainment. Self-help movements have touted the benefits of visualization in a positive mindset to the point of triggering a counter movement that warns against the effects of toxic positivity, referring to the practice of unrealistic optimism and the false belief that negative emotions are not okay. However, fantasizing isn't all bad, particularly if the positive and negative aspects of one's desired future are envisioned. Mental contrasting has been shown to improve health and relationships. One can use this technique through WOOP, a goal-setting framework that stands for wish, outcome, obstacles, and planning. At the end, one can use implementation intentions for scheduling or to clarify how they'll deal with setbacks. This can look like I will do X at Y in Z, or if X happens, then I will respond with Y. There was also a study performed evaluating different types of visualization, and it's clear that mental contrasting is better than mere optimism. Induced positive fantasies resulted in less energy than fantasies that questioned the desired future. Study 1. Negative fantasies, Study 2. Or neutral fantasies, Study 3. Additionally, positive fantasies yielded a larger decrease in energy when they pertain to a more rather than a less pressing need, Study 4. Results indicate that one reason positive fantasies predict poor achievement is because they do not generate energy to pursue the desired future. To increase your motivation, consciously set goals that are specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timed, that is, SMART. Even with SMART goals, people still lose motivation over time. This happens in part because a psychological tendency called delayed discounting warps our ability to properly value benefits that occur in the future. Delay discounting describes how rewards decrease in value the farther they occur in the future. So, how do highly successful people deal with the dejection, anxiety, and frustration without losing confidence in achieving goals? One solution is developing an action orientation. Action orientation refers to the ability to disengage from one's negative or harmful emotion. The way to shift from state to action orientation is to commit to your goals and sub-goals and counteract catastrophizing. Visualization can also help reduce stress related to your goals or lack thereof. Make sure you're imagining things that are relevant to the goal, positive, realistic, and vivid. Ideally, your vision will be exciting as well, even if you should avoid daydreaming to maintain focus. Catastrophizing is the act of imagining worst-case scenarios. It's a type of cognitive distortion, which is a faulty belief about the world or yourself. Because they fuel mental health issues, being aware of them aids in evaluation and well-being. For example, individuals pay more attention to bad things than good things, leading to a negativity bias. If your thoughts stress you out or you wish to become more logical, do research, since being aware of the mistakes of others makes use of the negativity bias, especially since you don't have to worry about getting defensive about the shortcomings of others. It's inevitable that you'll eventually be at fault, but consider the importance of error correction and not overemphasizing quality control. Also learn about cognitive distortions, cognitive biases, or fallacies, which are mistaken beliefs used to justify arguments. Doing so will give you a better idea of how to help yourself and others think logically. By the way, cognitive bias is an umbrella term used to describe a reasoning error or flaws in judgment. Your brain may overlook basic things like logic, strategy, and probability. Think of it like a blind spot as you navigate your day-to-day life. Cognitive bias can create gaps in knowledge that go on to affect how you make decisions. This then shapes how you understand the world around you. Anyone and everyone can have cognitive biases. In fact, most people are unaware they have certain biases ingrained in them. For example, the Dunning-Kruger effect happens when a beginner overestimates how much they know or are capable of. Self-awareness can be improved through journaling and seeking feedback. The easiest way is through introspection, which involves looking inward to examine one's thoughts, emotions, judgments, and perceptions. It allows us to gain self-awareness, understand our experiences, and build stronger relationships. Introspection plays a role in meditation and therapy, which makes sense considering its benefits: higher resilience, lower stress, increased happiness, and enhanced empathy, which result in better decision-making or even leadership. However, even when introspections don't provide useful or accurate information, people often remain confident that their interpretations are correct. This is a phenomenon known as the introspection illusion. Another thing to avoid is rumination, which involves obsessing over things or having them run through your mind over and over again. When trying to figure out the inner workings of the mind, one can end up ruminating on their discoveries. This can have negative impacts mentally. For example, in a study of adolescents with depression, researchers found that these teens tended to have maladaptive introspection with high levels of rumination. The result? This rumination often leads to a worsening of their symptoms. Fortunately, there are tips one can abide by to improve their introspection. Research shows that what questions are more effective than why questions, and it also helps to engage in mindfulness, curiosity, and occasional alone time. It also helps to be aware of the other cognitive biases that affect productivity. The mere urgency effect causes us to improperly prioritize tasks because of a supposed time limit, resulting in pseudo-productivity that just causes unimportant things to get done. The Zeigarnik effect causes us to remember incomplete or interrupted tasks better, and this showcases the importance of breaks and planning. The sunk cost fallacy refers to anything we've invested in the past that we can't get back, which contrasts the idea of opportunity costs, the benefit you would have gotten from the next best alternative. The present bias describes our tendency to choose a smaller, immediate reward over a larger reward in the future. But you can counteract this through goal milestones and visualization. Complexity bias describes our tendency to prefer complicated explanations and solutions over simple ones, which can be problematic since complexity may lead to unnecessary difficulty or even avoidance. As mentioned before, one way to evaluate your plans is a goal-setting framework known as SMART: specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. Specificity helps you figure out what counts as success for a given day, even if you only do the bare minimum. One way to boost motivation is to give yourself a high-low range instead of a singular target amount, thus balancing challenge and attainability. Regarding measurability, don't prioritize numbers over progress. Streaks are nice since they showcase consistency, but focusing too much on them can cause unnecessary stress if you skip a day. Attainability or achievability can take multiple forms. Goals aren't necessarily linear. For example, you can set one after you've already started working on the task. Alternatively, you can make progress by doing something that's not immediately relevant. As for relevance, that's in reference to your values and your life. Note that not all goals are truly time-bound, because some are reliant on external factors. Remember that challenges are good, but also that you shouldn't be too strict on yourself. Self-compassion matters, and everyone is different. Also, if you aren't making satisfying progress, you can use SMART to figure out what to do better. Recognizing how your time isn't being used as efficiently as it can be, or realizing you don't have enough time to begin with, can help you reassess your goals and the actions you take to achieve them. Focus on changing who you are as a person, not the outcome. For example, wanting to be healthy, not look good. In other words, make the foundation of your habits your goal, not the result. Prioritizing the destination leads to the arrival fallacy, the false belief that achieving a specific goal will bring lasting satisfaction. While setting and reaching goals can provide a temporary sense of accomplishment, the anticipated happiness tends to fade quickly. Hate to break it to you, leaving us discouraged. Understanding, addressing, and compensating for the arrival fallacy can help us lead more fulfilling lives with less unnecessary suffering. Our brains are wired to adapt quickly to new circumstances, known as hedonic adaptation. What once seemed like the ultimate achievement quickly becomes the new normal, and we set our sights on the next milestone, unknowingly perpetuating a cycle of discontent. Similarly, impact bias refers to our tendency to overestimate how long and intense our emotional reactions will be. We may even exaggerate the emotional impact of past experiences. This happens since we don't think about how other aspects of our life influence our mood, and because we overlook how quickly we can adapt to uncomfortable situations. Since the arrival fallacy is so ingrained, here are a few key strategies to counteract it. Cultivate present moment awareness. Practicing mindfulness helps shift focus from future outcomes to present experiences. Simple activities like deep breathing, gratitude journaling, or mindful walks can increase appreciation for the here and now. Redefine success. Instead of tying happiness to an external goal, define success in terms of personal growth, meaningful relationships, and daily joy. Internal markers of fulfillment are more sustainable than external ones. Find joy in the process. The real value of a goal isn't just reaching it, but the journey it takes to get there. Learning, growing, and evolving along the way are achievements in themselves. Expect adaptation. Recognize that the excitement of reaching a milestone will naturally fade. By acknowledging this, you can set realistic expectations and avoid unnecessary disappointment. Balance goals with gratitude. While ambition is valuable, it should be paired with appreciation for what already exists in your life. Take time to reflect on what's going well instead of always focusing on what's next. Go from why to how to what to make your goals resonate more. This is also a persuasion tactic. According to James Clear, author of the best-selling book Atomic Habits, we should be system-oriented, not goal-oriented, meaning you focus on how you'll reach your goal, since thinking more about the process maintains results, thus reducing relapses, and doesn't restrict your happiness to whenever you achieve the desired outcome. Goal setting suffers from a serious case of survivorship bias. We concentrate on the people who end up winning, the survivors, and mistakenly assume that ambitious goals led to their success while overlooking all of the people who had the same objective but didn't succeed. If successful and unsuccessful people share the same goals, then the goal cannot be what differentiates the winners from the losers. Goals are good for planning your progress, and systems are good for actually making progress. Goals can provide direction and even push you forward in the short term. But eventually, a well-designed system will always win. Focus on taking action and or what you can learn, not why something is the way it is. Doesn't mean it's pointless to do so, but some things in life are basically unchangeable. So overthinking can become a form of procrastination. On that note, there are various types of procrastination: perfectionism, having high standards, and fear of not meeting expectations. This leads to putting off work because of the fear of not doing it correctly. What this may look like: it must be my best work ever, but it's too overwhelming to imagine. This is the perfectionism loop. You may think that if you can't get a 100% on an assignment or do something perfect, then you shouldn't do it. Dreamer, big goals without any plan in place for succeeding. What this may look like: thinking that things may fall into your lap and that hard work will just happen. The thought of working bores you or frustrates you. Worrier, fearing change, resist risk-taking, and having worst-case scenario thinking. What this may look like: it's better to not start than to fail. Defier, promise maker with poor follow-through and many excuses or reasonings for not doing the task. What this may look like: this is stupid, I shouldn't have to do this. You're given a task that you think is not worthwhile, so you think it's boring, pointless, or mundane, and it fills you with anger. Crisis maker, intentionally or unintentionally create chaos at the last minute to delay work. What this may look like: I work best under pressure. You believe that to be motivated to do a task that you need the stress of the clock ticking down. The pressure alleviates the boredom, but the quality of your work suffers. Overdoer, unrealistic expectations of what can be achieved matched with a lack of priority setting abilities. Unfortunately, procrastination can lead to many things, including increased stress, heightened anxiety, physical sickness, lack of sleep, and burdens on social relationships. Even so, it can also be said that procrastination gives you more time to think, which allows you to process and gather information before a decision must be made. However, one could say the same thing about boredom that causes one to stop focusing on the task. Intentional breaks are ideal for reflection and fostering creativity. Time management is a concern too. According to Parkinson's law, work will expand to fill the time allotted for its completion. If one believes this, then faulty scheduling and deadlines feed into procrastination. While a student may say they perform better under pressure, the vast majority of the time doing this actually worsens their performance, regardless of the justification. While you may be hyper-focused on getting an assignment done at the last hour, you typically won't get the same quality of work from this practice, while also not accounting for problems with technology, health, and other factors nobody wants in a time crunch. One way to overcome procrastination is the nothing alternative, a term coined by novelist Raymond Chandler that he used to overcome his procrastination with writing. He'd block off a set time and have two options. Interestingly, despite the role that time management plays, procrastination has more to do with emotional regulation. Researchers found that procrastination is often associated with negative emotions such as anxiety and hopelessness, and could even lead to depression. A lot of the distress we experience when we procrastinate actually arises from our resistance to it. Instead, we should treat procrastination as a source of information. Ignoring that message leads to more negative emotions, but embracing procrastination and trying to decipher the message can help you get unstuck while protecting your mental health. While more organic forms of self-reflection, such as free-flow journaling, can help, it can also be useful to follow a more structured approach, especially if you are feeling paralyzed and don't know where to start. Created by Graham Alcott, the founder of Think Productive and author of A Practical Guide to Productivity, DUST is a simple method to identify why you may be procrastinating. It stands for the 4 most common reasons why we procrastinate: difficult, unclear, scary, and tedious. For difficulty, figure out what a simple yet specific first step is and commit to it. For lack of clarity, break down tasks and schedule in advance. For scariness, contrast the fear with the fear of not achieving your goal and consider putting pressure on yourself, such as announcing a deadline to pre-commit. For tediousness, automation, changes in environment, and award systems can help. It's also possible that you're just tired, meaning it's time to take a break. Your time management is worth reflecting on. However, don't overlook time affluence, which is feeling like you have the time to do things you enjoy. It's as much a mindset as it is a reality. Do a time audit and consider what tasks are taking up outsized time. Buy back time by outsourcing tasks you don't like. Studies show that people who spend money to get more free time are often happier than those who don't. Be deliberate with the time you buy yourself. Rather than using those 5 minutes when the Zoom meeting ends early to check your email, use it to call a friend, take a deep breath, or even do a quick meditation. These little pockets of free time are known as time confetti. The paradox is, giving time to others has been shown to increase a person's sense of time. Affluence researchers suspect that offering up your time to someone in need increases your sense of self-efficacy, making you feel like you accomplished a lot with the time, and in turn, that you have more time to spare, even if that's objectively not true. Dr. Kellerman also speculates that when we're spending time helping someone, we're acting from a place of generosity, which puts us in a different frame of mind, one that's more connected to our values and what really matters to us, and less worried about checking a task off a list. Although it's morbid, an aspect of appreciating the amount of time you have means being aware of your mortality. If you're young or old, but especially if you're young, remember to be grateful and focus on what's ahead. Shifting gears, I'd like to share my findings from David Allen's renowned productivity system and book of the same name, Getting Things Done. Unsurprisingly, although he has noteworthy things to add, the things this author has to say reflect the tidbits I've already shared. Remember the importance of defining your purpose, creating a vision, and externally collecting lots of initial bad ideas during the brainstorming process before trying to come up with a good one. This is more natural and thus results in a better and perhaps more creative outcome. During the goal-setting process, realize that why is a better question than you realize, and recognize the principles you want anyone involved to bear in mind. Additionally, there's no judging, challenging, evaluating, or criticizing during the brainstorming process to facilitate out-of-the-box thinking. Analysis and organization are in the background as the focus shifts from quantity to quality. After you've dumped the ideas out of your head, it'll be time to organize, and the brainstorming process will continue as you do so. Follow these steps, identify the significant pieces, then sort by one or more of the following: components, sequences, priorities, and detail to the required degree. If other people are involved, note that they don't have to be told what action to take next, seeing as they can reflect on what they're responsible for and guess. If there's a lack of clarity at the planning level, then there's probably a need for more brainstorming. If that doesn't work, then the issue is likely with the vision of the project. If that isn't clear, then analyze why you're involved in the situation. That is, your purpose. If others are involved, then you analyze their reasoning as well and try to figure out if tasks could be better delegated, as in, be distributed among your group better relative to what each member is capable of. Whenever the purpose of one's personal involvement isn't strong enough, the excuses will be. Getting in the mood to do your task can be as simple as putting on relevant attire. You can also put reminders, which you may come up with when reviewing your tasks, in relevant places. Besides that, it's important to have a location where you can work effectively, such as a home office. As for what it should be like, keep it simple. For example, color coding isn't necessarily worth the effort. Also, for ease of accessibility, make it so that your storage spaces are less than 3/4 full or otherwise not overloaded. Regularly remove items from them and occasionally get more storage space. This is important because you'll resist putting things in areas that are stuffed, leading to disorganization. As for some categories you can use to split things into, consider the following options: a projects list, project support material, calendar actions and information, next actions list, waiting for list, reference material, and a someday/maybe list. Also consider putting informal notes in the drawer for the sake of inspiration. Speaking of future possibilities, you should also occasionally reassess your long-term goals. As for deciding on what goals to tackle in the moment, bear in mind these criteria: context, what's your current environment, and what needs to be in your environment for you to work toward the goal, time available, energy available, and priority. Also consider the importance of having quality tools. For example, you may be more encouraged to start a paper if you have a pen that you like writing with. Lack of time often isn't the real issue, but rather lack of clarity about what a project really is or what action must be taken next. Think this out sooner rather than later. Getting things done has two components: defining what done means in a certain scenario, outcome, and what doing looks like, action. To most people, this sequence isn't as evident as you may suspect. Furthermore, bearing this plan in mind makes it so that you don't have to worry as much about the present, thus allowing you to focus more on the future. Another way to think of managing commitments is through horizontal, keeping track of all of your commitments and their key details to lessen the chaos. And vertical thinking, development, and coordination of individual topics means the following steps are another way to think about how we achieve results. Capture what has your attention, clarify what each item means and what to do about each. Then organize the results, which presents the options that we reflect on, which we then choose to engage with. Most people struggle with the capturing part since most of their commitments are still in their head. And even if they're written down, they're often not clear. And even if they are, they may still not be reaping the benefits of this style of thinking because they aren't doing at least one of the last 3 steps correctly. Don't worry about doing all 5 steps at once though. Just get to what's left soon. To make the capturing phase work, bear in mind the following. Every commitment, even if it's minor, must be in your capture system and out of your head. You want to think about tasks, not of them, since reminding yourself isn't as valuable as fleshing out the solution. You must have the lowest amount of storage spaces for the capturing process you can get by with, and you must empty them regularly. Following these steps will encourage consistency with how you use your collection tools, thus making them more useful to you. For minor tasks, like ones that only take a few minutes, consider getting them out of the way at the moment instead of writing them down. Regarding putting daily to-do lists on calendars, don't. Constant new input and shifting tactical priorities reconfigure one's daily work so consistently that it's virtually impossible to nail things down ahead of time. And daily lists can make important items seem less crucial since they're listed among unimportant matters. Game plans must be negotiable at any moment, and having to move incompletes from the current day to tomorrow can be demoralizing. Your personal organization system should consist of the following: a projects list, a calendar, a next actions list, and a waiting for list. To reduce your future workload, bear in mind the importance of setting boundaries. It's not worth guilt-tripping yourself over, but people-pleasing can backfire and be seen as frustrating. The person who does everything for everyone takes away the personal agency of others. Most of us want to do what is needed for ourselves. If you are a people pleaser, you will need to get to know yourself. Knowing who you are and what you value will open the door to a better understanding of your beliefs, emotions, and needs. This will also help you value yourself with a dose of healthy self-compassion. Everyone should learn the value of boundaries. Knowing when to say no and when to say yes is not hard. You will know if the needs and requests of certain others are within the confines of what is reasonable, and you will learn that you are not responsible for their feelings and reactions. People in your life will soon understand where your limits lie. There's also a couple of other methods one can use to stop people-pleasing. Think about your own needs first. Examine your intentions. Ask why you want to help others. Examine whether something triggers your helping behavior. Wait for the person to ask for help. Try asking others for their help. Realize you can be friendly without being a doormat. A lot of the stress that people experience comes from inappropriately managed commitments that they make or accept. Even if you aren't stressed out, learning how to better manage commitments will result in greater relaxation, better focus, and increased productive energy. In order to better tackle such matters, you must first identify and capture everything, clarify what exactly it all means to you, and then decide on how to deal with the things. While this is simple, most people don't follow these steps in a consistent way due to a lack of knowledge, motivation, or both. Besides that, anything you don't consider finished should be noted down so that it's outside your mind, thus allowing you to clear it a little. After all, things only ruminate in the mind because an acceptable conclusion hasn't been achieved. You also should clarify what exactly the commitment is and what you have to do, if anything, to make progress. Once you've decided on the actions to take, you must have reminders of them. Also note that this plan is different from a to-do list in that those lists are just that, lists. While this method requires one to make an inventory of the work that needs to be done, which is more actionable and thus less likely to result in procrastination. This is especially important if you're imaginative/creative, since thinking about what you have to do is a more vivid and thus more stressful experience. All of your projects, plans, and considerations for what to do in the future should be reviewed once a week. This allows you to ensure that your brain is clear and that all of the loose strands of the past few days have been captured, clarified, and organized. As for what you specifically do during the weekly review, gather and process all of your stuff, review your system, and update your lists. Also, before you take action, think about the following aspects of what's on your mind: context, available time, available energy, and priority. Another way to tackle a concern is by bearing in mind these 6 things: purpose and principles, vision, goals, areas of focus, and accountabilities, current projects, and current actions. Regarding the ingredients needed for relaxed control, those are clearly defined outcomes and actions to take next, along with reminders placed in a trusted system reviewed regularly. This method is known as horizontal focus. Sometimes, however, more rigor is needed to ensure success, and that's where vertical focus comes in. It involves slowing down and thinking about how your tasks align with what you want to do in the long term. It's possible for a person to have an overwhelming number of things to do and still function productively with a clear head and sense of control. That's a great way to live and work too, that is, at elevated levels of effectiveness and efficiency. Living like this also allows you to be fully present with what you're doing. Anyone using the right methods and techniques can achieve this, since one simply has to tap into abilities that they already have. There are 3 key objectives to keep in mind: capturing all of the things that might need to get done or are of use to you in a logical, trusted system outside of your head, directing yourself to make front-end decisions about all of the inputs you let into your life, so that you will always have a workable inventory of the possible next actions to take, and curating and coordinating all of that content. Calendars and to-do lists unfortunately aren't always adequate, as they're better suited for managing small amounts of things, meaning the average person's workload overwhelms these forms of organization. As for using values to determine what to work on, this is important, but it can't be relied on for a variety of possible reasons. Too much distraction for more complex tasks, ineffective organizational systems causing subconscious resistance to undertaking bigger goals, and having one's standards raised as a result of clarifying one's values more. Furthermore, improperly focusing on values can result in one getting more work. But even if that doesn't happen, it's not as though one's workload will necessarily change much for the better,